We're here at the European Society of Cardiology Congress in Barcelona. This is a particularly exciting congress with new data that relate very much to the implications and the impact of lowering LDL cholesterol beyond the target recommended by the ESC ES guidelines in very high-risk individuals. The CTT data, the meta-analysis, of course, of the statin trials, suggests that there is a continuous regression line from levels of LDL attained in the statin trials, levels of LDL attained in the recent Improve It trial, where we have gone down to attained LDL cholesterol levels in the range of 40 to 50 milligrams per deciliter in a substantial proportion of the on-treatment population, and where we've seen a significant reduction in events. Now, the GLAGOF trial, which was the first imaging trial involving the use of a PCSK9 inhibitor on top of maximally tolerated statin treatment in individuals with incident coronary disease, that trial showed us that if you considered patients whose baseline LDL cholesterol was less than 70 milligrams per deciliter, who on treatment descended 50% or more below that, so in other words the attained mean LDL cholesterol in GLAGOF was slightly less than 35 milligrams per deciliter, or little more, if you will, than about 0.8 millimolar. In those individuals, a remarkable 81% of patients showed regression of coronary atheroma when the measured parameter was total atheroma volume by intravascular ultrasound. So that imaging trial suggested to us that lowering LDL beyond the accepted low target for very high risk was translated into plaque regression and potentially into reduction in events. And then, of course, we had the results of the FOURIER trial with evolocumab on top of a background of statin at ACC in March this year, and what that told us was that on an attained mean LDL cholesterol level of 30 milligrams per deciliter from a baseline some 50, 60 milligrams per deciliter higher, slightly more than 2 millimolar, under those circumstances there was a significant reduction in both non-fatal MI and non-fatal stroke. So clearly, substantial lowering of LDL beyond the present target in secondary prevention patients translates not only potentially into plaque regression, further plaque regression, but equally into additional reduction in events over and above the statin background. So we actually have at ESC some really important and exciting new information from the FOURIER trial. And what this data suggests is that when you analyse the on-treatment population and you quintile in increments of half a millimole or 20 milligrams per deciliter from 100 milligrams per deciliter down to the lowest quintile of 20 milligrams per deciliter or less, half a millimole or less, what you see is a monotonic relationship between lowering LDL cholesterol and reduction in events. And that is equivalent, the reduction in events is equivalent for each 20 milligram per deciliter or half a millimolar decrement in on-treatment LDL cholesterol level. Now, the other aspect then is, and which is critical, is what was the safety profile? Well, looking at, I think, 10 parameters of safety, what was observed was that the safety profile was entirely satisfactory. There were no signals moving down from 2.6 millimolar all the way to half a millimole of on-treatment LDL cholesterol levels. So this is exceedingly encouraging. It's entirely consistent with the body of safety that we have so far, both from evolocumab and from alirocumab, so exceedingly encouraging. And the indication then is that in the future we will start to consider potentially in very high risk patients, particularly with progressive atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, a lower target for on-treatment LDL, which we believe on the basis of these new data would provide additional benefit in terms of further reduction of events in individuals at very high risk.